So here we go. I'm gonna paint this on and I'm just gonna brush. Okay. And if I pull into the corner, it's gonna pull and drag along the hard edge and pull some of the paint off so I can get inside those corners really good. And what's cool, another thing that's cool about Weisel's paint is the open time is pretty good. So you'll have time to, dip and re-dip your paint, throw the paint on there, and then we'll get into the, how do I make it, brush strokeless or add the brush strokes as you want to. So right now, I'm just getting my paint on. And you can see there's nothing, you really don't need to get too terribly fancy about this right off the bat. Because the open time meaning the time that it has before it dries is what I mean by that. You'll hear me say that term probably quite a bit. So we're gonna brush it on, and then after we get it on there where we want, we're just gonna nice and gently drag like this from one side to the other, starting in the recessed area and pulling out, in the recessed area and pulling out. And this is what we're gonna do to have a nice, clean, brush stroke free finish. And again, Weisel's paints levels really, really well. I mean, probably the best of all the chalk paints that I've used, chalk style paints I've used, because it really has that acrylic style, silky painted feel when you're painting it on, with the added benefits of the cool chalk style finish that you'll get after it dries. So it's like the best of both worlds almost. So again, we're just painting this on, getting it on however I can, and then I'm gonna go back and nice and gently. You can see I'm not using that much paint at all, and you can see the coverage is amazing. I will definitely do 2 coats, though I would not expect any of the colors really to have single coat coverage. I don't think I've ever had a paint that did. So you're gonna expect to do 2. So with that being said, you don't need to stress if you miss a spot. So if there's a spot you're seeing on that side of the camera, which I'm sure there is over here, I don't really need to stress about it too much. As long as I'm getting it enough on the second go round, I know I'm gonna be able to finish this off and have it nice and clean and clear and perfect and completely covered. I highly doubt you'd need any more than 2 coats. So again, gentle back and forth, dragging the very tips of the filaments across the paint, and then allowing gravity to do the rest. So I'm not gonna overwork it while it's drying. So while it's wet, I can do this, but once it starts to dry, I need to leave it alone. And then if I did miss a spot, I'll come back to it. So I'm gonna go all the way around here. I'm sure I'm missing some on your side, but I'll get that the second go around. And I am actually gonna do the second coat for you guys. I'm gonna add that to the video because there is a little nuance to the second coat that I use, my little trick, my little tip, that I really feel like helps using a chalk style paint, which can be very, I'm trying to think of the word, tacky. So once you're pulling your brush on wood or a surface, it's gonna probably glide a little bit better than it would once I go to do the second coat of paint across the paint, because it has that chalk finish. And I'm gonna show you how I do it and how you can ensure you get a nice smooth finish with the paint without it drying and becoming a mess on you. All right, so there's that. What do you guys think about that color? Pretty cool, right? So this is Refurbished Gentleman. This is the newest color from Weisel. It's May 2020. It's coming out this Sunday. So if you're watching this video a year later, hopefully it's still around. I'm hoping you guys really enjoy it. I spent quite a amount of time mixing colors and getting color swatches to find a color that not only represents me, I'm a blue guy, and had that little hint of gray, which I enjoyed having in the color, but also something that I thought everyone would enjoy. So I'm hoping you do. All right, so that looks good. So that's gonna be your basic painting on process. So we started with a cleaned and primed piece. So let's pretend this was a drawer, cleaned and primed drawer, let's say. And then took my brush, gave it a little prep with some misting of water, made sure it wasn't dripping, dipped it in our paint, used our stir first to stir the paint up really good. Pull the paint off the stir stick so we can use it again. Dipped up little less than halfway. You can see I never went up past halfway because you really don't need to. You don't need to get that much paint on your brush. And paint it on really quick while it's still wet. Get it in the area you want, use small areas at a time. And then gently pull the tips of your brush across the top to level it out and then walk away. And then what it will do is gravity will happen and it will settle and flatten. Now, if it didn't flatten enough for you, if you do see some brush strokes and you're not okay with that, but I'm saying you probably won't notice, but if you do, if you're one of those people that's like, oh my gosh, I don't like that, you can of course sand in between coats. And we'll get to that after this dries. I'm gonna come back to the second coat. We'll talk through a little bit of that part and then my little tip and trick to ensure we continue to get this nice, clean, flat look and not get any tugging or pulling with our brush against the paint from the surface. So that's it for now, and we'll see you here in a minute. Howdy, I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if you are, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, so you know next time I add some new content, and please, please, please share. The biggest thing about my motto, or whatever you want to call it, is create, share, inspire, and that's what I'm trying to do, create content to inspire people to start painting, to try new things, and just maybe step outside their comfort zone. So if you are enjoying this content, please hit that subscribe button, which will ultimately help me grow my channel and in turn allow me to reach more people. All right, so we're on to our next step, which is going to be the second coat. And that'll be pretty much it for the most part. If you're doing white, you may need to do more than 2 coats. I've had, depending on what kind of paint I've used, I've done 4 to 5 coats for white. So it just depends. The one cool thing about Lysol is they have a gray and a white primer, which would be the ideal thing to use if you're going to use white for less coat. So what I wanted to go over really quick was I realized I didn't actually open the can. So again, very basic. You can have one of these can opener deals and you're just going to go in and around the edge, gently pull the top a little bit at a time and go all the way around until it just comes right off like that. And it's not been that long, so I'm not going to re-stir it. If it had been like overnight, let's say, I may want to go ahead and re-stir it. So it's been about 4 hours. I'd say anything like about 2 hours-ish or more, you'll find to do your second coat. I wouldn't do it any less than that really, because Lysol's paint's a water-based, so you want to give it some time to dry and adhere and do its thing, because if you add water to water, it's gonna reactivate it and have it pull some of the paint off. But when you have a primer, that a little bit of that gets alleviated, but just to be sure, definitely at least an hour, 2 hours would be best. I usually do let it wait overnight before I do a second coat, unless I'm in a hurry, and then I might do it somewhere after the 2 hour window. Okay, so we got the top open and I got my brush in a bag. Again, very basic stuff, but you're brand new. What you can do with Lysol's paint and Cling On brushes is if you're in between coats, you can go ahead and take your brush and stick it in a Ziploc bag. Close and squeeze all the air out of it and zip it up. And it will stay soft and pliable and wet just like it would in the can. And it'll stay like that, which is great about their paint and these brushes, for a very long time. So I think I've left one in a bag for about a week, I think, at one time. I just forgot about it, and then I actually needed to use the color again, so I used the brush again. So that's just a little trick. So you don't have to keep washing your brushes over and over and over. You don't have to worry about getting another brush out. You can just pull out that same brush. So the same thing will apply though. You're gonna wanna go ahead and charge your brush, okay? So I'm gonna just spritz it just a little bit, right? And that's where we get into one of my tricks. And the trick I said about, I mean, look at how beautifully flat this is. So we painted, we feathered, we laid it down, and it flattened beautifully, just like I said. But now we're gonna be going on painting over the bottom coat. And what happens is there's friction. So you pulling paint across a chalk style painted finish, there's going to be some tug and some pull. And when I just say friction, right, and pulling. So you're going to start by getting your brush a little bit wet. That'll help. But also, if you feel like it's tugging and pulling too much, you can spray your piece. So what I would do sometimes if I'm doing a large area, like let's say the side, I got a dresser right here, I'm looking at it, the large side of the dresser, and I wanted to get all of it all nice and neatly all in one shot. I'll spray my brush a little bit, I'll spray the side of the dresser a little bit, then I'll get the paint and I'll go that way with it. And that'll allow the paint to stay open a little bit longer. And it'll also allow me just to lay it down and then feather it in so you have a nice, smooth, brush stroke free finish. And that's how I do it. And it's worked very well for me. So again, we're gonna make sure we got our brush misted a little bit. And I would highly recommend, I think this is for hairstylists, I think it's a mister. Let me show you if you can see better. And it basically has a mist instead of a spray. I don't like the sprayers because it'll have like bigger droplets of water than a nice even mist, which I think is really important for this particular step. When I mist over top of this, I don't want big drops all over. I want a nice even, layer of misted water, right? So I'm gonna go back to my can and I'm gonna brush this on. So if I feel any kind of tug and pull, I'll just go ahead and do one of these numbers like this. Just spray just a little bit on, get a little bit more paint, and that's gonna allow there. Now it's gliding a little bit better. And like I said, it's just basically all it is just friction. The friction from the tug and pull of the dry chalk-like paint and the wet paint and the brush and the filaments from my brush are wanting to fight against each other a little bit. So to help with that, we just add a little bit of water. And it really helps with that. And also, like I said, it's gonna help ensure it's open long enough for me to do this last feathering step, to really feather it out, allow gravity to do its work, and then it will just flatten perfectly. And a lot of people will ask, like, hey Mark, how do you get those brush stroke? Do you spray? I've heard that, which is probably the biggest compliment is, do you spray? And I've never sprayed. It's always just me and a brush. And that's one of those cool things. It's just technique driven. And it's nothing anybody can't do. They're just knowing the steps. And again, why we're doing the basic stuff that really help. So if you're brand new, or maybe if you've been doing it for a little while and you're trying to learn some new things, this is how I do it. So as I'm painting this on, again, I'm feeling that friction, the pull from, and you can even see the whole board's moving a little bit. So I'm just gonna give another little spritz all the way around where I put the fresh paint. And I'm just gonna let it glide, and you could feel the difference from painting it on without the water and painting it on with the water. And we're just gonna do the feathering, again, like we did in the first coat, and then leave it alone, let it settle. But the open time, again, is much longer for this than say a top coat. So you have more time to continually kind of go over it and over it and over it without having to stress about it too much. And then having that mister handy is definitely the way to go to continue to do that. So I'm gonna go into the corner and pull away. Make sure I don't have any pooling. In this second coat, you really want to make sure you don't get pooling in your corners. So you want to get in there and pull out from there. Pull out from there. Because once you get the pooling, that's no fun to clean up. So you really want to take a look at that. And the little trick for that is, in about 10 minutes after you've finished painting, come back, and those pooling spots will be very prevalent because you'll see a reflective wet look to them still, and you can still go in and kind of clean it up. So I always come back about 10 minutes after I've finished painting and just check to see if I missed any pooled spots and get them before they dry completely. Because once they dry completely, it's not fun to get rid of. Okay. And you can see I went over and over and over this a few times. This is something you wouldn't do with a top coat, but you can do with the paint, because again, we're using a wet misted brush, misted paint, and then it's water-based, so it allows that extra open time. And then voila, it's really beautiful, right? So that's all there is to it. So if you're looking to paint some furniture and you're new and you're trying, I just want to paint one color, Mark. I don't want to do one of your elaborate finishes. I just want to paint one color. Hopefully this video has helped you. So let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh yeah, the other step I wanted to talk about was the sanding. So if you did that first coat and you were like, oh my gosh, I had some brush strokes, I went a little bit too heavy, how do I get rid of those before I go to the next step? So what you can do is anywhere from a 220 to a 600 wet or dry sanding paper, somewhere in that range, and just gently go over the paint. Now, I didn't have to do that just because I know I did one thin coat, allowed it to settle, didn't have to worry about it because they didn't overbrush it. But if you do, don't stress over it. Like I said, you get a 220 to 600 wet or dry, and I'll probably put that in the description below for you guys. Gently sand over the top until you get where you want, and then go to your second coat. And then, you know, as you do it, you'll get used to it. The brush helps, the paint definitely helps because it's self-leveling and it really works well. And after a while, like I said, you'll just get so used to the misting and the steps that you won't need to worry about that. And then you might get creative later and do brush strokes on purpose and make it look really cool and like painted on look. And I enjoy that quite a bit, so I do that quite often. And so it's just another technique. And that's going to be it for today. Everybody have a blessed day, and as always, happy painting.